Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Stormworks. In this one, we are going to be starting off our new build. So I talked about this a little bit in some of our oil rig videos, but I've been making some good progress. So I think it's time to kind of show it off on YouTube. So this is the first part of the series. Right now, we are working on a cockpit in the background. And we're just going to kind of let that roll. I'll talk about the build a little bit as we build in the background. So this is going to be a military style build. So really what we're doing here is it's going to be a blended body airplane. So it's going to be rather large, rather wide. And the cool thing is when we're done with this, it'll fit 2 full-size cargo containers in the rear. That's how big it's going to be. But it will fit in the workbench like all of my creations. It's going to primarily be a aerial refueling tanker as well as kind of an Awacs. So think of it as a plane you'd kind of fly out in the outskirts of the battlefield and kind of send off information as well as refuel some of the fighters and people like that. But we've got a couple other fun little twists to it. And we'll kind of get into that more when we start building it. But for the most part, it's going to be a tanker and an Awacs. And I'm also going to make it VTOL. So fun on me. We've got lots of Lua to do in this one. Lots of screens. Lots of kind of cool little technology and that and whatnot. But for the most part, we're going to just try to shape it out today in this episode. And then in the next episode, we'll start working on the engines a little bit. And then we'll start getting into some more of the technical parts of this build. So I'm kind of drawing some inspiration from some of the other cockpits I've done. If you subscribe to my gunship, it's called Big Brother. It's on the workshop. Kind of a similar style cockpit we're going for. I kind of like to make a lot of my builds look pretty similar. So we're going to make it sort of look like that. It's a little bit bigger, so there's going to be a lot more room. But that is kind of what we're basing it off of. And then we'll get into the body. So quick before I get into the time lapse, if you guys like this series or you want to see more kind of military style builds, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And I can definitely assure you, I know a lot of people have been asking for it. This will be weaponized. We'll throw some fun little stuff like that on it. And that is just kind of coming at a later episode. So we're going to get right into the build. And once we get this cockpit done, I'll come back in and we'll start working on the rest of the body of the aircraft. All right, so we got a good chunk of the cockpit done, and I'll be honest, guys, usually I kind of struggle with these, so it usually helps to kind of pull up a picture and reference something. So in this case, I was referencing the Big Brother cockpit that I had, which is a little bit smaller, like I mentioned. I think it is 2, maybe 4 blocks thinner than this one. So this one's a lot bigger, but this airplane is going to be pretty huge. And you guys will see that in a moment when we start working on it. But let me spawn it in quick and we'll kind of walk around. This will give you guys a better sense of scale. I think the shape is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it, and it looks like we're going to have a ton of room in this cockpit for the pilots and the instruments and all that kind of good stuff. So that is pretty good. We're going to move on to the rest of the body now, which is quite a funky shape. I've got some of the blocks already kind of lined up right now before we get into the building, and then we will just kind of start filling it out as we go. So you guys can see it, like I said, it's a pretty funky shape. That is part of the reason that it's a blended body. So if you guys kind of Google it, you'll see a couple different photos of that and whatnot. But really what a blended body is the body itself is also a lifting surface as well as the wings. So it's not just a tube fuselage with wings on it. This is more of a the fuselage itself is kind of shaped in a way in which it's producing lift for the aircraft, which does not matter in Stormworks. Lift isn't really a thing, but I think it was cool and it's a neat idea. It should be pretty good to cram a lot of space and cargo into it, which is why I kind of wanted to give it a shot. So right now I'm just kind of working on the trailing edges of the wings, and that way we can kind of start shaping out the rear. So it's going to be the wings are pretty far back, as you can see, so it's inherently not a super balanced design, but it doesn't really need to be, again, because the body itself is doing a lot of the lifting in real life. So what we're going to do is I'm happy with this angle. I'm going to start sweeping it back at the same angle as the front, and right there, that's going to be the general shape of our aircraft. So we got to fill it out a little bit. The engines are going to be mounted right in the rear in the back, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more in the next episode, but for the meantime, we got to fill this out and start shaping it up. I'm going to bring the walls here. They're not going to go directly down. They're going to kind of sweep in kind of like a boat hull. And I think that starts to make it look pretty cool. So you guys won't see any of the refueling or the radios or the Awacs part until a couple episodes down the road. And that's just because those were all things that kind of came on later. Originally, I was going to make this just be a cargo plane. And then I kind of decided that I think just cargo planes are a little boring. So I gave it a reason to be militarized. So we're going to throw some turrets on it later on too. You guys will see that's not going to be in this episode. That'll be in a couple coming episodes. But right now we got to add these wings, and they're going to be pretty thick wings because we got to add a lot of fuel into this thing. So if it's going to be a tanker, we got to carry a lot of fuel, and I'm going to actually have it carry both diesel and jet fuel. The idea with that is, well, you can refuel either type of plane, but also since it's a VTOL, you could take this into kind of like a battleground on the outskirts and refuel a bunch of tanks if you wanted to. So I got it spawned in the world real quick, and you guys can see this thing is going to be pretty big on the inside, which is really cool. Like I said, we're going to be able to get 2 full cargo containers in this. Loading them is somewhat of a pain, but I think I came up with a pretty good solution for that. But yeah, that's about it. So we just got to work on we just got to start shaping this thing out, and then we will kind of talk about it a little more. Well, that was a whole lot of block placing, but we got the shape of this thing pretty much done. So that's kind of what I wanted to get done in this episode. We're not going to do too much else. I didn't want to get into the engines. That was kind of a longer video. So I do apologize. This video is a little bit shorter than I would like it to be, but you know, that's all right. But yeah, you guys can see this thing's got quite a unique shape to it, and it is going to be absolutely massive on the inside. So we've got a lot of room, and we can carry a lot of stuff, hopefully. And that was really the goal, was I wanted a big cargo plane that could do more than just cargo. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get the radar dome on this eventually, and then we're going to start getting the refueling drogues and boom and all of that good stuff. I think that you guys will like some of the features that I'm going to cram into this. So we'll have a couple turrets. I did mention that. And we're also going to put some missiles in it too. But nothing too serious. It's not going to be like a fighter or do that kind of a role. So we're not going to get crazy with the weapons, but it's definitely going to have some. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all we're going to get done today. So I'm just going to complete this up a little bit. I wanted to bring this edge a little bit more up. It was a little too flat to me. So we're going to bring it up a block or two and have it meet the rest of the fuselage. And then we will kind of finish this video out. So in the next coming episodes, I mentioned we're going to get the engines in place. So it is going to be jet powered, but we're going to use some ducted fans, which I personally think are a little overpowered. And then we are going to have to figure out the landing gear too. But the nice thing is, as you guys can see, this is a pretty tall plane. There's a ton of room in the fuselage, so we shouldn't have too hard of a time with the landing gear. It's going to be a kind of goofy mechanism. You guys will see we're going to put a ton of wheel bogies on the rear of this thing just because of how heavy I'm going to plan on making it. So it's going to get a ton of landing gear stuff. But other than that, like I said, that's pretty much all we got for today's episode. So if you made it to the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. As always, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.